It's October 1st, 2022. I'm in New York. Um, I watched CBS this morning. There was a bunch of different pieces on there that were concerning. It just leaves you with this feeling of like, where have we, where have we landed? I mean, I'm thinking I watched one of the Sports Brothers. I don't know which one it was. One of the athletes. And he said he doesn't lose. Like, it's unheard of. Like, it's not even, like, I mean, it's just, he's always focused on winning. And I'm like, right, got it. Okay, so you're like part of the Make America Great Again thing, I hope. Because, like, man, we are really losing the battle here on the streets. In case you hadn't noticed. So, I mean, like, and then it's so ridiculous because it's like, it's not like they live on the streets, like some of us. Then they're putting up, I don't know war things. I don't have access to the military. I did have two kids today. They're my son's ages, so to me, they're like kids. But they were such a God's blessing. I mean, first of all, they look familial to me because they look like the kids that my kids grew up with, or Ben grew up with in Ronkonkoma. So, before we moved to Patchogue. So, and like the kids that he grew up with in Virginia. I mean, so for me, they were familial. And they're just cute as buttons. Just, I mean, but respectful because now they're entering into young adulthood. And they took the time, it was raining, they took the time to speak to me. Just real wholesome, good, what looks like American kids to me. They look like all American to me. And not all American, but like, I don't know, they say all American, but I mean, to me, it used to be like all American, like the past presidents and like the past whatevers. And I'm thinking for them, I'm like, man, your parents got it right that you found me here, and they like we got this God's blessing thing going on where somebody sent someone into the right path at the right time. Cause like I got things in a click at the moment, um, and so I'm thinking of them. I'm thinking of my kids, and I'm thinking of the kids that I've lost because I can't find half of what used to be in New York. Um, but they got some Utah connection. I got some Virginia connection, like whatever that means. I think my DeFilippos, they're from West Virginia, but anyhow, um, that's my Angels. So they put on this commercial this morning. It's Raiders, and it's a Tide commercial, and they've got a Raiders jersey of number 17. I'm thinking inside gig, which I don't have, but I got a star twin or a twinning that has my star date, but he's the older brother to my star, which is like a nebula kind of a way. Um, there's one of their premier quarterbacks that league inside that NFL SEC thing. I'm thinking, does that make me NEC because I'm in the north? But again, I don't know how they divide it up for SEC. So I'm thinking of him, and he's got my grandfather's birthday. The grandfather that I got to meet. I didn't get to meet the other one. Um, then I'm thinking about New York has this dad that does this sports book thing with some Caesar reference, and he's got triplets. I can't tell them apart. And if they don't if they don't have the jerseys on, I don't know how they numbered them. in whatever's going on in the way New York's being run. And some presidents and executive leagues that I have no access to, and like whatever. Um, so they put that on, and the key here at Tide 17 was it's dirtier than it looks. Um, and then that goes back to they put on a it was episode 40, which is CBS Saturday mornings this October 1st, 2022, and they were talking about migrants. Now, it's an it's an older piece before I was born, before I arrived. Um and I was thinking today too. I mean, like, on really silly things, but like how blessed to have found that one of the sports leagues gave me a grandpa star and my own twin star inside their premier club. I mean, I feel blessed that the stars have aligned that way. Maybe they don't feel the same. I don't really know because, again, I don't have access to it. But for Alexander and I, for a communications project, I feel blessed, trying to figure out this world. I mean, I don't know what world they come from, but in this world, in New York, it has not been easy. Um, and it says on this piece by Edward R. Murrow, it was a 1960s documentary called Harvest of Shame. Now, depending on who you speak to, they would theorize this in all sorts of different ways. For me, it spoke of Johnson, and it's President Johnson, and he breaking poverty by education. Um, and they also said that migrants have no lobby. They do not have the strength to influence legislation. Now, my question, inside like billionaires league of sports presidents and executives, since I don't know who else to call upon, and then their quarterback brother and grandfather star, in blessings, is that still the case? Because what I see on the TV, it's really frightening. It seems like they have lobbies and voices and motions and putting things in counterbalances and balancing. I mean, and it's I'm I'm not reaping any benefits here. I've been hurt a lot. Um and they also speak on something called camp, CAMP, which is a really frightening word, depending on how that could be spun in Angry Birds and in Piggy Island, in whatever on that. And it says college assistant migrant program. I'm like, wait a minute, what college? Is that King's College? Is that Queen's College? Is that college in the Shire? I mean, I'm in the Glen area. I'm at the Bay at the moment, but it's like, um, and then I'm like, okay, so to fund this college assistant for migrants program back in the 1960s, I mean, like, did they get any kind of like written whatever that they were not ever going to give them legislative and lobbying capabilities? Because I think someone broke the bank and someone broke an agreement. I'm just saying, the way that it looks in founders and whatnot. And then I'm like, all right, how do they plan on funding this? First of all, it's Johnson. So I'm like, there's a Johnson space station. One of the places in like all scientists die and go to NASA because I'm in America. But I haven't been given that opportunity. I went to school with a Johnson, Stephanie, but I didn't get to NASA. I don't know how that route got blocked, along with marriage. I mean, like, they left me nothing. Um, and then I'm looking at, okay, so now they've got Vegas, casinos, and sports gambling. And I'm watching the white guys and some others sitting in these casinos and hotels and like cheering on, like, we'll use NFL. Like, yeah. And like they're getting like really into this. And like I'm not and like I'm a numbers chick, but not like I'm not a numbers chick like a sports betting and whatever. I was watching the thing today and I'm like, how did they make a market? I mean, like I could, and then of course like the beauty in like the whatever I can appreciate, but I'm really disgusted by the whole enhancement of it. I know it makes a lot of money, but I don't see the benefit in the programs, especially when I see in New York 15,000 new migrants just being dumped in New York City. And there's settlement houses, there's food programs for them, there's school programs for them, there's process for them. And I'm like trying to raise one kid I got left after the first three kids. I have no idea where their place in the world is. And I got one left and I'm holding on to him. Like, what is the city program? What does the city have to offer? Because it looks like it's got nothing to offer my son. He's white. And so I'm like, and then I look to the opioid epidemic and they show that in Maine and the Maine State Police. And I'm just like, so, and I'm like, okay, so now they're poisoning the streets. And they said that they didn't ever have heroin on the streets as an epidemic before. They used to have crack, they said. But they never had heroin and opioids. But now it's there. And I'm like, are they just trying to wipe out the population? Like, I mean, like it's so sick to have to think about it. And then Bill Maher has on this person. I can't really follow her story. Like I've heard her like she's on this particular E40, but that's not the piece that was really important. The piece that was really important was her episode on Bill Maher because she actually gave me education. They said that she's from either Afghanistan or Iran. I don't really know the difference. They don't educate me here on that. But they have some similarities in something. I don't know if it's, and I don't have words to speak on it, so I don't. Um, but they said that something with an A, like an AA, some kind of agent was sent to try to kidnap her. And I'm like, right, yeah, I've heard of that in that part of the world where she comes from. I've never really heard of it here. Nobody speaks about it. I've seen movies on it, but like you never think it's going to happen to you. And then I'm going through like my life frame and I'm like, but it has. Or in a kind of sort of way. But I don't know where my people exist. They seem to be a little busy with opioids, sports betting, and gambling, and preparing for the next breakdown and the next, I don't know what, invasion, I suppose. That's what it looks like. And I don't really see much prep going on for the president's children or myself in these lands. And then she speaks on they're burning this headdress because you're not allowed to wear your hair out. And or you get slashings. And when I had to watch it twice, I was like, because it's happened to me here. I mean, they slashed my body so I couldn't sit, I couldn't lay down, and I couldn't really even hold the baby because my stomach was slashed in this really insidious ways where like in physics I hold where I was holding the weight. or I would rest upon if I was to lay down or sit down. It was like right in the spots that hurt the most. And then they're showing something I never heard of either, called a sham referendum. And I'm wondering if that's what they used in order to derail my entire life and cause this much pain inflicted upon my person, to promote some alternate agenda and make me appear to be unworthy. I really don't know. And I see people say, like, it's this Hurricane Ian now. FEMA's out. He did a lot of damage in Florida and South Carolina. And now everybody's got their hand out looking for money. And I'm just like, I've been here. I've been really hurt. And I don't see where the NFL presidents and executive club and quarterbacks club, who seems to be benefiting from the system, has even taken an interest or planned to help me in my situation, to avoid being concubined the wrong way or human trafficked or anesthetized as I'm going about my daily effects, trying to just get by and figure out where I belong and who I belong with. So I feel like the marriage certificate to Jay and to Anthony, they're like sham referendums, if I have any way of trying to explain it. It's not necessarily fraud because it's a forced relationship, but it's also withholding of the relationship that I needed. And I also had an NYPD officer come in who came to check on me once. I was in my room, quiet as I usually am. He just wanted to look in my room. I was sitting on the floor. And then as he was leaving, just to check to make sure I was okay, he said. And then as he was leaving, he looked at my grandfather's paintings. I know that that has significance, and I don't know where in the world, when he worked for the Red Cross and the whatever that he was part of the military with, that he didn't speak of while he was here, or barely spoke of, because he didn't have English words for it. So it was like it didn't exist. And Linda wouldn't let him speak to me in Italian or teach me Italian, so whatever on that. Made her uncomfortable. And my English American grandfather, or spoke English American grandfather, the one with the Purple Heart, he passed away, so I had no words of wisdom from his side or his people. So anyhow, so this is what it looks like on the TV, what the big board is throwing at me today. Here's an AARP commercial, and then it goes into the Tide, the number 17, and just how dirty it's gotten.
Take some planning.
What can you do for me?
Make sure your money lives as long as you do. The younger you are, the more you need AARP. Join today.
Yo, Devontae Adams!
What's up, man? We need to talk about that lucky jersey.
Haven't watched it in years.
Multiple years?
I don't care, Stains. It's lucky.
It's dirty.
Lucky.
Dirty.
Lucky.
Dirty.
Dirty.
Lucky.
Ha! Maybe lucky?
No. Dirty. You know what to do.
Good luck out there!
Bro, no, listen.
It's dirtier than it looks. It's got to be Tide Hygienic Clean. Now get $15 back when you spend $45 on Tide and Downy.
Ready to ship.
So that's the one piece. Then it goes to, now this is on episode E40. That was at 38.32. Then it goes, I'm going to go back to 30.42, where they talk about the migrants who have no lobby. And it says they do not have the strength to influence legislation. These are like reminders of past presidential either treaties or agreements prior to my arrival, because it happened in the 1960s. I guess when they were putting this, this, what do we do that's so wonderful? Like now they're educating children. But what's happening is they're overeducating this migrant population that came in some like 1960s, whatever. And it's like a shutout, like my whatever. It's like I was shut out of everything that I needed. And I'm a special circumstance. I mean, I was raised a very quiet, like former military household with no ancestors on to sway one way or the next. So marriage should have been really easy to high standards and genetically enough to make someone a very happy husband and a happy father. But that didn't happen. Something went wrong. So here.
The migrants have no lobby. Only an enlightened, aroused, and perhaps angered public opinion can do anything about the migrants. The people you have seen have the strength to harvest your fruit and vegetables. They do not have the strength to influence legislation. Maybe we do. Good night and good luck.
Maybe we do. That was CBS News anchor.
Now, in New York, in my day and age, agriculture wasn't even spoken of. A career in farming, like I come from a family, an American family, no less, in Gunder, Iowa, with the zip code that was dedicated and granted to the family that was there that I have no access to and I don't know. They were farmers. What happened to the farm? I don't know. What administration, what led up to this day and age? I don't know. But it's part of a grander story and schematic that I haven't even been able to address because of how foul this has become.
Edward R. Murrow concluding the 1960 documentary Harvest of Shame. The broadcast examined the plight of migrant farm workers in America. By the end of the decade, President Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty led to some help for internet farm workers and their families, including one program that strives to break the cycle of poverty through education. Omar Villafranca has the story.
And nowadays, they've taken that with this they made statements as if they were facts, and they broadcast it as some kind of agreement. If you fast forward from 1960, I arrived in 1978. And by 1978 in New York, the schools were already in some turnover. And there was no place for me. Like, Linda used to take me to the playgrounds in the city. I don't know what for. I don't know what experiment they were participating in. But they used to push. And they used to cut in front. They were just a rough bunch. I mean, I was in my hat, my tights, my beautiful outfit in Manhattan, and I was getting bullied and pushed all over the playground. If that wasn't insight enough that, like, my life needed a, like, real, serious, hefty hand of help in order to get to the correct high standard.
Let's get you out.
Giselle Chavez is used to getting up before the sun rises, but today is different. She's packing pillows, clothes, and the only life she's ever known in Edinburgh, Texas, into her mom's car.
Now, they have this camp program for someone like her. The parents are involved. There's like a promotion for this college thing. I wasn't given the same. There's some college that I was taken to, and in my junior year, but that was for marriage and proposal, and that was something completely different. The college they're speaking of is like university, classroom, dorm room, seated, whatever. I know it's the same word, but it is not the same meaning whatsoever.
After one more family breakfast together, the daughter of migrant workers will drive 300 miles from the fields to her freshman year in college at St. Edward's University in Austin.
And now I've heard in other mentions that this act alone that Johnson did is considered treason. You're not allowed to educate for reason of inheritance and others because it causes future problems if it's not framed and built correctly. So now I don't know how to handle that little bit of information. There's so much information that they throw, but I don't know how it's been thatched and framed into work that is contractable and contractually obligatory. In why are they not following any of, like, I mean, I've been so cut off. There's no, like, there should be, theoretically, I should have a mentor or a guide of some sort. I should have a connection and a phone line to. I should be fed information and feed back information in a closed loop and network system. There should be rules, and then there should be chain of command and protocols. I don't know why none of that's been. I'm in survival mode at this point, and I have children on the field, which means that in vulnerability and also been hunted like an animal several times in these lands. While everybody's catering, it feels like, to this, rather than addressing the needs and the damage I've already sustained.
I'm nervous, like, oh my gosh, like, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna like the classes? Am I gonna like the people? Are they gonna like me? Look at Eileen.
It's a long way from where Giselle spent her summers. Migrant worker students fund their first year in college.
The migrant farm worker occupies the lowest level of any major group in the American economy.
The life of migrant workers was highlighted in 1960 by legendary CBS News anchor Edward R. Murrow in a documentary called Harvest of Shame. Murrow gave viewers an up-close look at the poverty and poor working conditions migrant workers faced in the richest country in the world because of a lack of access to education.
So now it would appear I got cut off from something that I was supposed to get to. So now I'm left in the field. They're advancing. They're in the labor unions. They're getting union jobs. They've got contracted work. They're moving in. They're calling upon reinforcements from elsewhere. Militarily wise, National Guard and whatnot is looking. And I mean, there's something called an Air Force, not the Royal Air Force, but there's an Air Force that goes by the U.S., that's contracting them. Now I hear that the Coast Guard wants to make the Coast Guard staff more like the people that are in New York. And I'm like, whoa, but you're all turned around. Like the Titanic just breaking. And it's just like, it's really frustrating. And then they follow one man's story.
Approximately 1 out of every 500 children whose parents are still migrant laborers finishes grade school. Approximately 1 out of every 5,000.
That would mean so they wouldn't be entering the workforce to take jobs away from the people that already live here and already work here, who some of them need the mitzvah or the handout or the good deed. They need money. And there's someone somewhere else who only has so many resources that they can allocate.
Ever finishes high school. And there is no case upon the record of the child.
Morning correspondent David Culhane reported on camp.
Now, this was 36 years ago. Now it's 36 years later. He's living a dream. I'm not. I've been hunted in these lands. I've been hurt in these lands. I've been taken down in these lands for reasons that never get explained to me, and I don't know who was involved. And now I have produce or gardening issues with not knowing what to do for them and how to prepare for them or what they're going to be prepared for. Now here's Vegas. I'm pretty sure this was not this built up when I arrived. I think I don't know Vegas history, but I think that and I've been there. I actually was invited back. One of the women that I met through Exit had another special distressed property, and it was like a women's symposium. She asked me to come. I went out there. I got to spend one-on-one time with her. She took me around Vegas, showed me the business. I thought that was really nice that her and Michael took the time to host us there outside of Exit on whatever, and hearing and trying to get into the distressed property aspect of it in New York to meet asset managers and that sort of thing, although it never fruited into anything that I could tell. But it wasn't wasted necessarily because it was a lot of one-on-one time with who accompanied me out there.
What happened in Vegas used to have to stay in Vegas, at least when it came to betting on sports. But that's changed dramatically in the past few years, with more than 30 states and the District of Columbia allowing legal betting on games in person, online, or both. It's projected to be a $129 billion industry by 2028. And as Brooke Silva Braga shows us, betting has become increasingly intertwined with the games themselves.
On a Wednesday afternoon in Pittsburgh, a journeyman catcher stepped to the plate.
Strike to Tyler Heineman.
But even this low-stakes baseball moment had people betting on what Tyler would do next.
He's about 4-1 to strike out, 5-1 to hit a single.
In FanDuel's New Jersey office, trader Tom Heenan.
Now, in all fairness, I had my Series 7, I had my 66, I was in the financial markets, not as a trader, not as a FC. I was a AACA. I was administrative, and I was client related. I was client relations. So I was customer service, and there was a back office, and I was like an intermediary. I thought I was good at my job, but there was an FC who then became an FA. I know in alphabet soup, these are important things. And I worked as part of a team. There were sheets of trades that the FA, who made over six figures, I made less than six figures, would, with the clients, go over them, and then they'd hand us the sheets and we'd have to put the trades in and execute them. That was it. But there's no judgment. There was no financial advice. There was no any of that stuff. But I was trying to learn because it looked to me like, at the time, I referred to it as OTB betting. I'm like, I don't see what the drivers and then they use these big words like fundamentals, and I'm like, still don't get it. I mean, sat in the office, listened to Squawk Box, listened to like the whatever, watched the Jason Bourne DJ FM AM like charts of what that people use to make like long-term. I don't get it. I always said that. I'm like, I learned the history of it. I went to Green Street Financial. They taught me how to get my license, got my license. And I sat there and I listened to the professionals that made over six figures. And I still didn't understand how they did it. And I also did not understand how they built a book. That never made sense to me. And I was not blessed with somebody just handing me a relationship management position or book of business. Now I'm listening to it with a sports fundamental driver as opposed to the financial markets as the driver and the corporate backed in economy and whatever, however those fundamentals are driven, which again, I'm not going into. I know how they work, but I'm not going into it. And now I'm watching it with the sports fundamental as the driver. And I'm still watching these people like type on these machines. And I know it is like a gazillion-dollar fortune and fame lore into it. I'm still not participating in it. But I'm still wondering, with all of this economy and all of this built, how could I have been so forgotten about? Not one angel investor noticed I was missing. I mean, I met with a few. I've been around a lot.
Peaked the odds while his boss, Will Twin, looked on.
And this is a big part of what we try and do. We want to give a really innovative betting experience for our customers.
Lead off walk.
Okay, he walked. Someone had walk.
Someone did at 13-1.
Oh, that's pretty good. They turned their 100 into 1,300 for a walk.
Sports bets used to be placed in Las Vegas before the game started. The odds or point spreads were never discussed during the broadcast.
And don't forget to play FanDuel's over-under game.
Now, in-game betting made from a phone,
What you need to do is download the BetMGM Sportsbook app.
is promoted seemingly constantly.
He's scored a touchdown in 8 of the last 10 games.
Mike Raffensperger is FanDuel's chief marketing officer.
I personally think there may be no more disruptive force in sports than game.
I've been to Vegas, I can't tell you how many times, for the conferences. Walked through the gambling casinos, never stopped, never gambled, not ever. I think something happened with Tiafrio. He wanted to gamble, and he sat down at a table once. I sat there, but I didn't do anything. I'm like, I don't know how to gamble. I was like, cards? I don't play them. I have no idea. So I just sat there until he was finished. But this is one piece of how are they funding things, and what has their contribution been, and where did it lead? Somebody gave me tickets to Cirque du Soleil, had no idea what I was walking into. I mean, like, these are the typical disgusting, shameful events that the humans have done. I would never see naked people like doing acrobatics. Not my thing. But luckily they sat me in the lighting booth next to the guy who had like the big light, whatever. and I couldn't see from that far up anything. Like, I could see like shadows of people like going from a trapeze into a pool. That was about it. I really couldn't see anything else, thank God. Um, but I mean, this is the stuff. It's just, I like, how do you get away from this stuff? Like, how do you, I mean, when you don't know things and people are purposely sending you into these traps as some kind of morality police entrapment when they know how sensitive your position already is in the celestial community, and that you've already been hurt before, you've already been hunted before, and you're trying not to draw attention to yourself. Now they have a picture of Moosehead Lake in ME, which they're saying is Maine. I use ME differently, but whatever.
Now to the nation's worsening opioid epidemic and the new approach.
So we go from gambling and casinos and sports betting, mirrors a little bit. I mean, I'm not up for a debate, so I'm not going with financial markets versus horse betting versus sports betting. It all seems like a vice to me, and it's not my cup of tea. So then I'm looking at the other side of the epidemic, which is this opioid crisis and this heroin, fentanyl is the words that they're using for it, and the devastating effects, and what the, like, after you lose everything, almost what's going on for the population. Like, I guess sports gambling is like the more glamorous side if you stay in the positive, which again, statistically, I don't know what those ratios are. But then it's like, is this where this is like the bottom end of that?
Approaches being taken to fight it. Over 100,000 people have died from drug overdoses in the past 12 months, the vast majority from opiates, including synthetic drugs like fentanyl. One place the problem is especially acute is in Maine.
CSU to Oxford Street, CPD on scene for a subject that is overdosed, 2 doses of Narcan with no pulse.
On a Tuesday afternoon, police in Portland, Maine respond to an opiate overdose and administer Narcan, what has become the go-to on-site treatment.
How bad is it in Portland right now?
In Portland right now, we are currently 90% above where we were this time last year.
Double?
Yes.
Where you were just a year ago?
Correct.
Why?
Access.
Heath Gorham is Portland's interim police chief.
When I started 22 years ago, we very rarely saw heroin. We never saw fentanyl. It was all crack. And over the years, pills became very prevalent. And then we saw the resurgence of the opioids, the street drugs like heroin. And then in the last couple of years, we've seen fentanyl move in.
No, I'm just curious because I know Johnson & Johnson is a big brand of some form of pharmaceutical. They have space agency involved in their umbrella word that they use for John's son. Then there is the ex or former president, that was Lyndon B. Johnson. I don't know anything about his presidency. I don't know about the history. I don't know about what party he was even related to. They don't teach that kind of stuff. I'm too busy dealing with like dope head stuff and trying to figure out what's the living history right now. Like, I have to orient myself. And like, it seems Sierra Occidental. That's the coastline I'm on, as opposed to Sierra Madre. And I'm a little confused in like the northern whatever, having grown up this way with what's cooking in the central kitchen. What are they up to? Like, no, because it seems to be hitting the streets here And I don't understand how nobody was prepared for this. I mean, like, 100-year plan, people know. Why was I so hunted and hurt? And why didn't I get to the correct high standard that I was born for?
Fentanyl is not new. But on the streets, it has reached new levels for many departments already overwhelmed.
So you have a warrant, you have 4 warrants for your arrest.
There's 4 misdemeanor warrants, but they're not a big deal.
Just clear them out.
Jesse Dana used to work in corporate and retail sales for a clothing company. He's been a cop for 10 years.
Do you have anything on you that's going to get you jammed up at county? Because that is a felony if you've got any drugs on you, dude.
A cop who, like many others, is now expected to play multiple roles.
All right, buddy. Well, if you need something throughout the day, let me know. Just stay in the shade and kind of chill out, all right?
Are you their friend? Are you the police officer? What are you?
You know, ultimately my job is to be a police officer and to enforce the law. But, you know, everybody down here, you know, is a person just like, you know, the people that I've worked with in my previous career, right? So you have to treat everybody with respect. Okay, have you checked in with your doctor?
Most of the folks that are dealing with being unhoused are also dealing with a substance use disorder and behavioral health disorders. So those co-occurring disorders and a lack of treatment beds, a lack of inpatient treatment is leaving them out there on the street, and fentanyl is so incredibly easy to get.
What help do you need from the federal government?
We need facilities for inpatient treatment.
Inpatient treatments for drug addiction lacking on the outside are now being pioneered on the inside. We went into the Maine State Prison, a maximum security facility for those who've done the worst of the worst, often under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Like Earl Buddy Beeler, who's serving a sentence for murdering one person and nearly another.
Oh, I thought what was interesting.
Someone's saliva.
Narcotics. 42% of people incarcerated here are now being treated with Suboxone, a strategy embraced by the Commissioner of Maine State Prisons.
If we recognize that addiction is a disease, we should treat it that way.
Randy Liberty grew up surrounded by a life of crime. One of his first jobs when he entered law enforcement was to guard his own father.
Unfortunately, dysfunctionally, it was comfortable. I go into Charlie Block upstairs in the jail. Morning, Dad. Morning, Randy. And it's some of the best time I ever spent with him.
Liberty has one main mission here, to normalize corrections.
Let me take a look at it, okay? Thank you. Nice to meet you. Any of the states can adopt what we're doing here, and it really just means reducing the stigma of being incarcerated, stopping the shame.
Part of that means making a prison not look like one.
We're aggressive with our agriculture. Not only
it smells nice.
Yeah.
For example, the abundant gardens and even pickling classes.
I think we did maybe 3,000 tomato plant.
It is amazing how in prison they are. Now, I know they always do stories on Rikers, which is like a completely different set of warden, whatever, in different state completely. But I'm watching this. And the amount of education, the amount of resources that they pump into this, they say it's $46,000 a year for one person. I'm like, I didn't even make that at Chase as a salary. But yet they have plenty of funds to fund the inmates and then their programs on top of it and so on and so forth. I don't understand how that works. I can't. I mean, they're making hand over fist in the sports arenas, in the gambling casinos, in the whatever, as a country. But yet, as a state, or as a person in a state who would be happy to move, I mean, how do I survive? Now, on Bill Maher, it's S20E29, which aired on 9/30. Today's 10/1. And he's HBO.
First group who came to the street was women of Afghanistan. Can you believe that? The Western feminists who actually went to my country, wore hijab, they bowed to the Taliban. They didn't take to the street yet.
See, someone like her grew up in a house or a society or whatever where there were boundaries. You knew if you showed your hair, they might hunt you down and you might be thrown in jail, or you will be thrown in jail. I mean, like, there was real clear, taught home values and whatever. Where I am in New York, there has been no such thing. There has been no home rules given. There's been no societal rules given. There was one dance class, which was ballroom dancing, and there was one meal etiquette class that we went to. It was several weeks of classes, but it was like a one-time event, and then we had to wear gloves and dresses, and it was very formal, and it really was, I mean, it was so nice. It was such a nice change of venue, and it was such a gift for whoever gifted that to us as an elementary school. And it took place, we were welcomed into a temple, or a temple hall of some sort in Huntington Village, or Huntington area. And they allowed us to share their space. And then someone sent in someone to teach us the etiquette of sitting down and how to use the knife and fork and that sort of thing, which was more reinforcements, because it was mostly how my house taught my, I had two aunts that went to boarding school. So when she used to take me, my Ziada, when she used to take me into Jamaica Estates to stay with her in her apartment, she would cook, and then she would make sure that I sat up straight. And there was the whole etiquette lessons from her. So it was just reinforced that somebody outside of the house knew that these things existed.
Are liberals so moronic about the problem? Really,
it just breaks my heart, because for years and years, we have been warning them about the dangers of morality police. You know why? Because most of them speak in a perfect English, and they have who actually talk about Islam and Islamic countries. They never go and live under Sharia laws, but they don't even let us talk about.
Now, I don't know, because I hear her speaking in generalizations. I don't know who she listens to or where to even find that information out. I'm sure it's out there in the public somewhere. I just don't have exact access to it. It's not on like what I call the antenna stations, which were the stations I grew up with before this digital world and this digital enhancement and this like bajillion channels. I don't know who to listen to or how to decipher or cipher.
About our own experience, you know.
Yes.
I grew up in a country where I was told that if you show your hair, you're gonna go to jail. You will receive lashes. You will get killed, like Mahsa Amini. But here they tell me that shh, if you talk about this, you're gonna cause Islamophobia.
That's it. You might make somebody upset or worried about who you are and where you come from. I was not given the same rules. I didn't even know this existed, but yet someone took it upon themselves to slash me and to derail the marriage of high standard that I needed to get to by several different events. And it was never spoken of. Like, these events happened. I don't remember them necessarily because I'm anesthetized. I go out cold. But I don't know. My parents didn't talk about it. I don't even know if my parents know what really happened. I don't know who's in charge of this level of leadership or land management. I have no idea. But it's never spoken of, and I'm just wandering out, trying not to get hurt, trying to survive, and trying to find a way for myself. Meanwhile, there's billionaires doing whatever billionaires do and completely ignoring like even simple things like bringing me up to speed on what might be moving in or out of the area or what might be a potential harm for me at some point. I mean, there has to be some kind of responsibility at some level of how can you just leave me here without able to take care of myself, without being able to raise this family. I wasn't even like the kids that I mean, they're my blessings, but I mean, I have no way of caring for them. And then trying to survive and struggle through all of this. I mean, this is not, this makes absolutely no sense. And then to add on top of it, I have the historically accurate, most crucial constellation piece of I'm the mother of nature with the hands of time. And I have one other person that I can see in the world got into the TV and does very well because they like him. He's got a fan club. So there is one that made it into the TV. So I don't understand how like this network or world is supposed to work. Really, I don't. And like what's a blessing, what's a curse? And like how do you know if somebody is after you? And when the world does things and then doesn't inform you of the things that it's up to so you could stay safe or out of the way or perform in some way to like get to a better tomorrow. I mean, this is like really, really, I mean, it's just, it's so insidious on so many levels. I mean, from lack of education to, I mean, lack of formal education to withholding of, and then feeling like I'm in some solitary confinement where like I don't even have access to like physical, I mean, like physical needs. It's just, it's horrible. It just really is. I don't deserve this. I don't. I'm a good person. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. I don't know how this area got designed. I don't. I don't know who's in charge. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know who's not following protocols or chain of command. I don't. Nothing's been provided to me, so it makes my end a little bit special circumstance. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.